What? It's like underwater.
What is?
What's underwater?
Yeah, it's
the
sinking.
boat is underwater?
The boat is sinking.
Oh my God. The boat is sinking.
What happened?
Oh my God.
And they didn't let us off.
Your life is safe for sure. Okay, so just.
Oh my God, the boat is sinking.
The boat is sinking right now. Oh my God.
Oh, that's
Oh
right. He's
my
like,
God.
respect the people that are still on the boat.
There's like a ton of people still on the boat. Look at all those people in front.
Oh my God, heaven.
Get us on land!
Can you please take us on land?
Hey humans, it's Hannah. Welcome back to my channel, or if you're new here, I do videos on creepy and disturbing things. And welcome to Can't Look Away episode 4. This is the series where I tell you 5 disturbing stories that happen to real people that you probably haven't heard of. Before we get into that, today's video actually does have a sponsor. I don't want to interrupt in the middle of the stories, so we're going to do the sponsor at the beginning again, and I will be right back. We'll get right into it. Today's amazing sponsor is Exter. Do you ever lose your wallet? And if you're not the type of person that loses your wallet all the time, are you the type of person that has a wallet that's just super bulky with all these cards cramped in there like sardines in a can, and it's impossible to find the specific card that you need at any given time? There's people waiting behind you at Starbucks. Get it together. Exter wallets solve all of these problems and more, as they are pretty much the James Bond of wallets. For myself, I picked the aluminum card holder in the color rose, of course, because everything I get is pink. First of all, look at how pretty it is. It can hold up to 15 cards and also has an expandable aluminum backplate. And now watch, this is why this wallet is so impressive. Like, I mean, seriously, this is like a magic trick. Watch, just push this button on the side and I didn't want to put my real cards in there because I couldn't do it without my information being on there, but that's just an example. But look, and now you could just pull out whatever card you need, put it back, and they all go down. Simply, you can see them all. It's so, I can't stop doing it, honestly. Now, let me show you this other wallet I got from them, and I'm actually planning on giving this one as a gift. I'm gonna give this one to my dad for Father's Day in a couple weeks. So I got their bifold wallet in the color brown. It's super smooth, very soft, like premium leather. And this one also has a magic trick. So if you open it up, this is actually a magnetic, removable magnetic card holder. Oh. See? So you could just carry this around if you wanted, or you could just take bulk out of your regular wallet so that this is thinner and fits in your pocket better. That's why I thought my dad would really like this. And then I also got a solar powered tracker. You just need to give this tracker like 3 hours of solar power and it will be charged for 2 months. It's the size of a credit card, so it will fit in any of your Exter wallets. So if you have this, if you ever lose your Exter wallet, you can easily ping it on your phone and see where you left it on a map. Or it will just ring and you can hear where it is. It's so cool, such a lifesaver. You can go to shop.exter.com/HannahTheHorrible and shop their Father's Day sale right now. Link will be in the description right below this video. On February 17th, 2021, at around 5:35 a.m., emergency services were called to a home in Georgetown in Halton Hills, Ontario, Canada. The house was engulfed in flames, and while firefighters did everything they could to try and put the fire out, it was already too late. First responders found 2 bodies inside the home, later identified as 59-year-old Andrew and 56-year-old Krystyna Rerak. Law enforcement was pretty much immediately suspicious of the fire. It just seemed much more like a deliberate attack rather than an accident. The fire just spread very quickly, and it just seemed unlikely that both Andrew and Krystyna, that neither of them would have heard anything or woken up or called authorities before their house got consumed by the flames. So, post-mortem examinations very quickly confirmed the suspicion that law enforcement had. This was no accident, and the investigation was very quickly changed to a homicide investigation. Lucky for law enforcement, a neighbor's home had surveillance footage outside of their house and had a perfect view of the Rerak household. What they found on the video of the Rerak home the night before of the fire is absolutely spine-chilling. The footage shows the Rerak's house the night before on February 16th, 2021, just before 6:30 p.m. One of them pulls into the garage and a person can be seen sneaking in behind them from the right of the screen while the garage door is open. Here's the full clip. So as you just saw in the clip, the person coming home closed the garage door with the intruder still in the garage. It looks as if the intruder is hiding behind the car, but we can't really tell from the surveillance alone whether the homeowner saw the intruder or not. 27-year-old Harrison Brown was arrested for the crime on March 27, 2021, just a month after this happened. He was taken into custody and charged with 2 counts of first-degree murder as well as arson. It was discovered quickly that Harrison Brown did know the couple and he had a business relationship with one of them. Unfortunately, we don't know much beyond that at this time. Also, remember, Harrison has not been convicted of these crimes yet. He has not gone to trial as far as I know, and so this is all alleged. However, if he did in fact do this, my speculation would be that somebody in this couple was his boss, and Harrison either didn't like them, got fired recently, something of that nature. Of course, that's pure speculation. So back to the video itself, if the person who came home in the video had seen the intruder, perhaps that's why they do seem so calm and closed the garage door anyway, because they knew the person, so they weren't scared. However, I have a feeling they didn't see them. He did look like he was hiding behind the car when he invaded the home, and even if you did know someone, you'd likely still be very startled, scared, and confused if they just randomly snuck into your house behind you dressed all in black. The other very big mystery here is that we don't know what happened in those hours since the intruder entered their home and the fire the next morning. There's almost an 11-hour gap between when that surveillance footage was taken and when the fire department was called. So that just begs the question, did the intruder kill the couple almost immediately, ambush them, quickly kill them both, and then did he just hang out in the house the rest of the night, trying to decide what to do and how to handle the situation, and ultimately decided to set the house on fire? Or just as terrifying, did he enter the home, ambush them, and then hold them captive for hours? And then finally, the situation must have escalated one way or another where he decided to take both of their lives, and then in a panic, set the house on fire to try to hide his crimes. I'm not sure we'll ever know the answer to that question. It's possible that maybe in trial, the suspect, if he is in fact guilty, will tell the jury and then subsequently the public what he did with them when he entered the home and why such a long time passed before he set the house on fire. Regardless, we can only hope that law enforcement has in fact arrested the right person and that Andrew and Krystyna will get the justice that they deserve. On January 13th, 2012, the majestic luxury cruise ship, the Costa Concordia, left Civitavecchia for Rome, Italy during a 7-night cruise led by Captain Francesco Scatino. Over 3,000 passengers and over 1,000 crew members were on board. By the end of the night, the ship would be half underwater, and 32 of those people will have lost their lives, with many others having to swim in the dark, cold water to shore. And the most fascinating thing about this tragedy is that the passengers on the ship got almost the entire ordeal on video. Tragedy literally struck when the Costa Concordia collided with a rock off Isola del Giglio on the western coast. The captain decided to move the ship to a path close to the shore of the coast to do a salute to the island of Giglio as they passed. They didn't see the rock so close to the surface of the water, and they struck the rock. The damage to the ship caused loss of power and loss of electrical systems almost immediately. Parts of the ship began filling with water. Passengers, by all accounts, definitely felt the impact of this crash. Many of them describe it as just being enormous and sudden. But the initial announcement to all the passengers on the ship, even though everybody was kind of waiting for what they should do, if this was a bad thing or if it wasn't a big deal, what they felt, etc., the first announcement that went out to everybody is, you guys don't have to worry. It's just an electrical blackout.
We're currently in a blackout as we've experienced electrical failure. At this point, the situation is under control and
Tu sais qu'on n'est pas loin des côtes, on est en train de dériver.
the situation will give you further information as it becomes available.
On est vers une côte là, on est juste à côté là.
To inform you that due to an electrical fault, which is currently under control, we're currently in a blackout. Our technicians are working to resolve the situation.
Bah, il était en train de tourner comme ça vers la côte.
Thank you for your attention.
But like I said, tons of water was already flooding the ship, and no one called for an emergency. In fact, after this announcement, they were actually told to return to their cabins at first.
Una volta che noi abbiamo finito di sistemare il problema che abbiamo elettrico, del problema elettrico del generatore, tutto sarà calma. Per quello che abbiamo questa luce d'emergenza, è tutto sotto controllo.
This, in spite of the fact that a bunch of passengers reported seeing crew members walking around in life jackets. Not surprisingly, chaos ensued. A lot of passengers did believe there was nothing to worry about at first, but as the ship began to tilt, it was clear pretty quickly that something was not right. The captain still didn't announce an emergency or for an evacuation, although at this point passengers were starting to panic and put on their life jackets anyway. Finally, almost an hour after the initial impact, Captain Schettino finally called for a state of emergency and that everyone needed to abandon the ship. This chaos lasted for the next 6 hours as everybody tried to get on a lifeboat and get to safety. But like I said, it was chaos and panic. People were screaming, children crying, passengers and crew members just running around, plates crashing off of shelves, objects shifting under people's feet as the boat continued to tilt. In the midst of all of this, while all this was happening, Captain Schettino found the opportunity to get on a lifeboat, and he took it. He left his ship and thousands of passengers that he was responsible for still on his ship who were struggling to find safety, and he bailed. Cooks, maids, other crew that were very low on the totem pole, you could say, were helping anywhere they could. There's others risking their lives for their family, friends, and strangers, some refusing to get on a lifeboat so they can stay and help others. Residents that were on land at the island who were witnessing this tragedy and heard all the commotion came out to try to help. The whole town, residents were opening their homes, they were opening the churches, opening any buildings that they could find to put all these thousands of people up for the night so they could have somewhere warm, dry, and safe. People were dying, and Captain Schettino abandoned them all. The Coast Guard commander, Gregorio De Falco, is one of our badass heroes of this story. He took charge and was finally able to reach Captain Schettino. He yelled at him to get back on. Here's the phone call between the two.
Senta, io sono De Falco da Livorno, parlo col comandante? Col comandante Schettino, comandante. Schettino? Sì. Ascolti Schettino. Ci sono persone intrappolate a bordo, adesso lei va con la sua scialuppa sotto la prua della nave, lato dritto, c'è una biscaggina. Lei sale su quella biscaggina e va a bordo della nave. In questo momento la nave è inclinata. Ho capito. Che sta facendo, comandante? Sto qua per coordinare i soccorsi. Che sta coordinando lì? Vada a bordo, mi coordini i soccorsi da bordo. Lei si rifiuta? No, non mi sto rifiutando. Lei si sta rifiutando di andare a bordo, comandante? No, ci sto andando. E mi dica qual è il motivo per cui non ci va. Ci sto andando perché ci sta l'altra lancia che si è fermata. Lei vada a bordo, è un ordine. Lei non deve fare altre valutazioni. Lei ha dichiarato l'abbandono nave. Adesso comando io. Lei vada a bordo. Okay. Ci sono già dei cadaveri, schettino. Avanti. Quanti cadaveri ci sono? Non lo so. Uno l'ho sentito. Me lo devi dire lei quanti ce ne sono, Cristo. Però ma si rende conto che è buio e che qua non vediamo nulla. E che vuole tornare a casa, schettino? È buio, vuole tornare a casa? Adesso va a bordo. E mi viene subito a dire quante persone ci sono. Va bene, comandante. Vada, subito.
And get this, in spite of being yelled at by his commander, in spite of being ordered to get on the ship, in spite of saying he will get back on the ship and that he was going, he didn't. Yes, I do think that the whole captain has to go down with his ship thing is pretty outdated, but I do think they have a responsibility to stay with everybody on the ship until everybody who could possibly be saved is saved. You should definitely be the last one evacuating. If you're the captain of the ship, it's what you signed up for. This man is such a coward to me. And satisfyingly, he was sentenced to 16 years in prison in 2015 for his role in the whole thing. Like I said, 32 people did lose their lives, but the vast majority of people on the ship were able to get to the island and get to safety. The boat was just almost like looked ridiculous. It was just like tipped all the way over, half underwater by the end of it. I highly recommend watching full documentaries of this on YouTube. There's a lot of like 45-minute little documentaries on this. My favorite one is called The Sinking of the Concordia Caught on Camera, documentary on a man named Matt Antcliffe's channel. I don't know who actually made the doc, if he actually made it, but it is available on his channel. There's so much footage from the passengers from that night. It's so interesting to me to look at human behavior, get like first-hand look at human behavior in emergency situations. Like, I like seeing the different way that people react, how some people stay really calm, some people are really panicked. It just makes you wonder what you would do in that situation. And the documentaries on this are just so bananas. I know there was an overall trigger warning at the beginning of this video, but I'm going to place another big trigger warning for this particular story. This story involves a very young victim. She's only 2 years old when she died, and so that can be really triggering for some people, so I would highly suggest skipping ahead. This story also involves animal cruelty and animal neglect, so I won't be offended if you want to skip ahead to the next story. There's timestamps down below. This next one is not going to be for everybody. Shaiunna Hare was only 2 years old when she was killed by the family's python while she lay sleeping in her crib on July 1st, 2009. The family pet was an albino Burmese python. We're just going to call her G, as her full name is a racial slur. She was 8 feet 6 inches long. Shaiunna's mom, Jaren Hare, she was only 19 at the time of the attack. She was sleeping next to her boyfriend, Charles Jason Darnell, who was about 31 at the time. Charles had awoken at their home in Oxford, a town about 60 miles northwest of Orlando in Florida. He went into the toddler's room to check on her, and he found the python attempting to eat the toddler whole. Charles called 911 and had to use a butcher's knife to injure the snake in order to get her to let the child go. However, it was too late. Shaiunna was already long gone. The snake had already bitten her several times and constricted her until she had died before it even attempted to consume her. Here's everything that went wrong that night and why this very easily could have been prevented. According to most sources, although some of the sources in this story vary, but most sources say that the snake belonged to Jaren, Shaiunna's mom. She bought the snake for about $200 at a flea market about 6 years prior. She did not have a license to keep this very exotic, very large animal, and so she wasn't technically supposed to have it in the first place. And clearly, she didn't actually want it that badly. The couple severely neglected G. She was only 13 pounds, and she should have been about twice that weight for both her age and species. They believe that she hadn't been fed in an entire month at the time of the attack, and so being extremely hungry and very malnourished and neglected, G just acted on her instincts. G was just hungry and she wasn't being taken care of. It's gonna get so much worse. Please prepare yourself. This snake was known for escaping her enclosure. She did so regularly, and in spite of knowing this, the couple still kept her in her 150-pound tank with a quilt as a lid. That's right, a quilt and nothing else. And it continues to get worse. A few months before this happened, just in May of that year, somebody had called DSF on them. DSF is the Department of Children and Family Services. Surprise, the person that called in the tip was very worried that the 2-year-old Shaiunna was not being properly taken care of. A DCF investigator came to the home to check on the toddler, saw the python there, saw it in its very poor enclosure, and didn't do anything about it. The 2-year-old didn't seem scared of the python, so it must be fine. Honestly, this is one of the most negligent situations I think I have ever heard, and I'm sure many of you feel the same way. I am not sure what happened to G. Several sources say that the snake died after its injuries from Charles, but then other sources say that she was actually sent to a vet clinic, treated for these injuries, and then so they could also get evidence from her that she recovered from the attack and she was sent off to be cared for elsewhere. I'm gonna pretend like that's what happened to her, because like all animal attack stories, this was 1000% not the snake's fault. And it also, of course, was not Shaiunna's fault. I rarely come out and judge this harshly on my channel. I try to remember that I've never been in these types of situations before, but in this particular case, I'm sorry, these two people were idiots. Not to mention the fact that the DCF investigator definitely did not do their job, but I know that's a whole other issue. Anyway, both of them pleaded not guilty, but they were both convicted of aggravated manslaughter and child neglect. Both of them served 12 years in prison, and both of them were released last year at different times. However, they are both on supervised probation until the year 2026. So that's something. I am glad that they got some serious jail time for this, because I know they didn't intentionally do it, but the negligence is just so strong in this one. Body Integrity Identity Disorder, or BIID. This is a disorder characterized by the desire to be disabled or having discomfort with being able-bodied, beginning in early adolescence and resulting in harmful consequences. Now, before anybody comes for me, I did not include this story in this episode because of the mental disorder itself. Of course, as we know, mental disorders are not something that people can help. And the disorder in itself is also not disturbing or something to be treated as disturbing or like a bizarre story. However, Jules Shuping's story is just so intricate and has so many different angles that I'm very fascinated by this case, but also very curious to know other people's thoughts. So a person with this very rare disorder, they basically have a desire to amputate one of their limbs. It's usually a leg, but it's also a desire to become disabled, like to become blind or become deaf. Sometimes, but not always, by any means, Sometimes it is associated with sexual arousal, but definitely not by any means that's the case for everybody. Interestingly, most people with this mental disorder will not actually amputate one of their limbs. Rather, they resort to purposely becoming injured and becoming so injured that surgeons are forced to amputate the limb that they no longer wish to have. So the ethics around this in general are really interesting, because it's like, if somebody really does have the desire to do this, and if they're at risk of doing it themselves or injuring themselves in order to force it to happen safely, should we allow people to get this as an elective surgery, become deaf, blind, or lose a limb so that they do it in a safe way? Should it be considered body modification or aesthetic surgery? Anyway, so this particular story is about, like I said, a woman named Shuping. Her desire to go blind had been there since she was very young. In fact, she would walk around the hallways of her house at night when it was dark to see what it would feel like not to be able to see. By age 6, she remembers thinking about how much more comfortable she would be without her eyesight. In her teenage years, she acquired her first white cane and started to wear really dark sunglasses. She was fluent in Braille by the time she was 20 years old. And this is very common for people that have BIID. They will pretend that they have lost this sense or lost the limb already, even though they haven't. Like I said, this is a very rare disorder. To most of us, it does seem pretty unnerving in itself, but like I said, this disorder is not the reason that it's on this list. What is creepy is that Jewel did end up going blind intentionally, and she found a psychologist that was willing to help her do it. According to Jewel, she went across the border to Canada in order to acquire eye-numbing drops. The psychologist then put these in her eyes, and then a few minutes later, the psychologist poured drain cleaner into each one of Jewel's eyes. Jewel admits that it was an extremely painful experience, but she was okay with it because she knew that she would be blind soon, and that thought made her very happy. It took her 6 months to lose her eyesight completely, but Jewel claims that she's happier than ever. She originally told her family that it was just an accident, but of course her sister and her mother found out the truth fairly quickly, and they actually cut contact with Jewel, which is very sad in my opinion. Now, Jewel is okay with this because she feels like this is how she was supposed to be born. However, it's very important to note that Jewel herself, who went through with this, is a very big advocate for people with these thoughts to get help rather than follow in her footsteps. She acknowledges fully just how dangerous her actions were and how detrimental they could have been, and that she got lucky and that nobody should repeat what she did. Rather, like I said, she encourages others with this disorder to seek professional help, which Jewel herself seems like a very kind person, and she just seems like a real genuine person who actually legitimately really wanted this to me. The disturbing part that I find about this is that she found a psychologist willing to do this to her. That's really the part of this story that creeps me out so much, is that somebody, a professional who was supposed to help her, like she said, go get out and get professional help, and she did, and this psychologist said that she would help her. That blows my mind. Jewel, of course, has never named the psychologist that helped her. She doesn't want that to get them in trouble, as she knows they probably would get in legal trouble, but she was the one that asked for it and consented to it, so she doesn't want them to get in any sort of legal trouble. But I don't know, like I said, the ethical implications of this are very polarizing for me. Is this kind of thing considered the desire to self-harm and therefore it shouldn't be done? Or is this considered a legitimate mental illness, which I don't think it's named legitimate. I don't think it's in the DSM yet, as far as I know. I'll check on that. But if that's the case, should these people be helped? Like, I don't know. It just seems like, are they at risk of hurting themselves? And should we help them do it? Or is that a slippery slope? Is it just body modification? What do you guys think? This last one is the only one in this list that maybe you have heard of before, but I really wanted to include it anyway because I think her story is important. On May 24th, 2015, a YouTube channel called Lisa Holm posted a countdown timer. It was the only video on the channel, and the title of the video was 13. A little more than 13 days later, 17-year-old Lisa Holm went missing. On January 7, 2015, Lisa Holm was finishing up her shift at a cafe that she was working at for a summer job. She sent a text message to her dad at 6:23 p.m. telling him that she was on her way home, but she never came home. Her father went to the cafe that she worked at, hoping that she would just still be there and got caught up with something, but she wasn't. Instead, he found her moped out front with the keys in the ignition still. He and the cafe owner couldn't find Lisa anywhere in the area. They called the police at 9:47 p.m. after realizing something might have happened to her. They started the search with the police and came up with nothing. 2 days later, on June 9th, they found Lisa's personal items, including her phone. The search continued, but for the next 3 days, they only found a few more items of her and nothing else. Some of these items were found in a barn in Bloomberg. Then, on June 12th, 2015, they found Lisa's remains. The way she was found is bizarre. Some of the search members started searching the Martorp estate area just a few kilometers away from the cafe that she disappeared from. While they were there, 2 people pulled up in a car and told them that the area had already been searched. They don't need to search this area because they had already taken care of it. When they drove away, rather than moving on, this only made the searchers way more suspicious of that area, as it should have, and instead they called the police to report this incident. Sure enough, later that night, they found Lisa's body in a work shed in the area and found out that she had died from strangulation. A man named Nerijus Bailavikas was arrested, and he had no alibi, and they found his DNA all over the crime scene and on Lisa's remains. Sure enough, it was also determined that he was one of the people in the car who was trying to deter the searchers from looking in the area that he knew Lisa's body was. The other person with him was his brother. He was ultimately sentenced to life in prison on November 17th, 2015. So remember, they found her stuff a few days before they found her. They found some of her stuff in a barn in Bloomberg. They believe that this is where Nerijus actually killed Lisa, but then he moved her to the watershed where they eventually found her. So what about the weird countdown video? Did the killer himself post this video and had been stalking Lisa and planning this whole thing for a long time? Or did some random person post this video and had predicted her death? A lot of people thought that the killer posted this video as a very sinister clue to the world about what he was about to do, since it was posted on May 24th, 2015, and then it was titled 13, and 13 days later, Lisa was abducted. Even though that's technically 14 days, I think, but still freaked people out. However, police started to say that this video going around had nothing to do with Lisa Holm's disappearance. And it is likely in the end that there was a simple explanation for this whole thing. Someone randomly posted a short timer video for their own needs on a brand new channel. And then after they heard about Lisa's disappearance in their area or wherever they were, decided to change the title of their channel to her name, and then the title of the video to the number of days from posting the video to when she went missing. So it's almost certain that this video is a hoax. But again, to me, the video itself is not the reason that it made it into episode 4. It's that somebody used Lisa's abduction and murder as a way to go viral. Or they did it as a prank, or they did it to mess with the family, whatever it is. The fact that people do that kind of stuff, just like the Maura Murray case a lot of people know about, and something similar happened in her case. It's just beyond me. Like, haven't the families been through enough already? Even with this video being a hoax, it's still very, very disturbing either way. Okay, everyone, that is gonna be it for episode 4. Please let me know what you think in the comments below. Please leave this video a like just to support me personally if you want, and I will see you all next week. Thank you so much to all of my Patreons on the screen. Shout out to top tiers Colin Holmes, Deck of Cards, Michelle Valdovinos, Tom L, JJ, Dirty Kitty, Quasi Eli, Little Kittle Cat, Whimsicott Fan, Delta Wolf 776, Mitchell Meyer, Mike, Alice Paul, Dark-Sided Otter, and our newest, Brittany Phillips.